Hello and welcome to the Awaken Feminine podcast live version. I'm Kaki Lee, and today I have the beautiful Jean Atman with me. Welcome back to the show, Jean.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be back with you.
Yes, so am I. We had such a great conversation last time you were on, and I'm very excited about the topic we're going to be talking about today, plus whatever else, it's going to flow through as well. So, Jean, before we get started, I'd love for you to just give our audience a brief introduction of who you are and where you're joining me from.
Yeah, I am joining you from Charleston, South Carolina, and I am a hypno-integration specialist and soul coach. I help people sort of drop off the trauma of their past, the programs that sort of run on default in the background, so they can really come into their true authentic self, not who they thought they were, but actually who they're meant to be.
Love that. Whew, that sounds really exciting. And I think we need more people to really wake up to who they truly are because half the time, I think, well, speaking for myself, you're just living the life that everyone, you know, has told you or tells you who you are. You're just acting that
Mm,
life out. Yeah. So, Jean, last time you came on, I asked
yeah.
you this question, but I love to ask my guests this question, um, even if they come back on again, because I know this changes all the time. But what is your current definition of the awakened feminine?
Hmm. The awakened feminine, I feel like it's really coming into the clear definition of who we are as this feminine energy. And this can be male or female, there's no like gender specific, but it's really that creative, intuitive, personality or persona that we hold within us, letting that part grow and bloom as opposed to all of the default programs and the strategies and all the have tos and the linear thinking and all that stuff that feels, I don't know, more distorted, I guess. So for me, it's really coming into that creativity, the flow, the surrender, as you and I briefly spoke about before we came on together live. Yeah, I think that about sums it up.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, Jean, when I asked you to fill out the questionnaire, you wanted to name your episode "How to Align with Your Highest Timeline," and I was like,
Mm.
"Ooh, okay." I'm so excited to talk about this. I want to ask you why this felt like the thing you wanted to talk about. I know there's always a backstory, so would you mind sharing a bit about your backstory as to why you wanted to share about it and a bit of your personal journey as well?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. My personal journey. How much time have we got? It's been
You
a
have an
long one. I
hour.
always say I did not read. That's right. I always say I did not read the fine print before jumping into this incarnation because, woo, I would have thought twice. There's been a lot of big lessons for sure. But what I'm realizing through all of my work, personal and professional work, is that we have a choice of how our lives run. And many times we forget that that's an option. We just feel like we're in this place, we're stuck in it, we can't get out of it. And that's false. It's just an illusion based on past programming. And so when we can go beyond the programs and tune into what our soul's journey actually wants, there's so much potential out there. There's this beautiful branch work of all sorts of different timelines we can hop onto, depending on what we're wanting and the experience that we're wanting to have. It doesn't have to be the suffering and the current path that people are on. We really can choose something different. And we forget that we have free will and choice a lot of times. And so I help people come back into that remembering and that knowing so they can actually shift the trajectory of their life.
Hmm. So for you, was there a time were there times that you felt stuck? And how did you kind of go, okay, I'm going to move past this and choose a timeline that I want?
Yeah, always, frequently. It's like a constant, life feels like a constant learning journey. I am never one of those going to be like a self-proclaimed guru or anything. I'm in it with everybody else. I'm in the trenches. I'm figuring stuff out. And as we're coming into this new earth energy, there's a learning curve to this as well. And what I'm seeing is whereas before we needed to really dive in deep into the depth of things and understand it all and unpack it all. And it was like a lot of excavation and a lot of work and effort and focus. And it took years sometimes to work through things. Um, what I'm seeing now is as we move through things, like something that used to take me, years or months to work through, I can work through in minutes now. I see it, I have the awareness of it, I hold that, and I just choose something different. So it's working through all the layers of, finances, love, relationships, career, purpose, like all of that stuff always comes in as we're up leveling. Like, what do you really want? You're fine here, but what do you really want? Is this really satisfying you? Is that really hitting that sweet spot of satisfaction within you? Or do you want something different? And it's like you can always feel something stirring within you that you're meant for more. And that's sort of my driving force of change. So is life good? Yeah. But could it be better? Yeah. you know? So I feel like following our aspirations and our inspirations. And I find that whenever I level up to something, I have to drop off everything that has prevented me from moving up previously. So every time I up level, I've got all kinds of stuff that surfaces that I get to pick through and say, what do I want to take with me? What do I want to leave behind? And it's like this purging process a lot of times that we have to go through. And so this year, as I kind of briefly shared with you, is a huge purging process ever since mid last year, actually. Just this huge purging process of everything that hasn't been working. Yeah, you too. We're all in it, you know? But when you know where to look, it's easier to move through it and not stay stuck in it. So that's kind of been my journey.
Mm.
Sounds like you're going through
For
some similar things.
yeah, around the same time, mid-year last year. I would love to for you, if you don't mind, like sharing for people that don't might not know the languaging around like what does purging mean? What does like dropping things
Mm.
that are not going to take us to the next level mean? Can you give an example maybe from your life or maybe a client's whatever, feels good, but just so people can understand what
Hmm.
it looks like in a real life example.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for instance, I have a client who she grew up with a very narcissistic mother and a lot of cruelty, a lot of abuse. And so, what happens when we go through that, especially in our early developmental stages, when we are living in a world that is not safe, we develop all kinds of belief systems about how the world works and we develop all kinds of protective mechanisms. So she was not able to express her needs as a little child. So now she finds herself frustrated a lot that people aren't listening to her. They're not hearing her. They're not understanding her. And so we go in there and we see what is that part of you that believes that you can't be heard, that you can't be understood or honored or cherished or whatever that is, because there's always something deeply buried within us that's creating this reality. Because every single thing that happens in our world is a direct reflection of what we contain within. So if you're not being heard, understood, listened to, whatever, there's something within you that believes that you don't have that ability or access to that experience. So we dive into the depth of that. And so what we did with her is we healed those inner child wounds and let go of that stuff. And so every experience that we have, every thought that we have, every feeling we have is part of our energy body. And when we have a deeply traumatizing experience, we sort of get paralyzed in time and that energy gets stuck in our system. And so as kids, we flow, we're creative, we're flowing, we're moving, there's so much flow. But when there's trauma, we start to get stuck energy. So we start to stagnate more and get heavier and not be in the flow of life and all that's available to us. So energetically, we go in there and we see where that stagnation is. And what's held there are the memories, the traumatic experiences, the feelings around it. And so we start to clear through that stuff. And what happens when we clear it is it starts to go from this deeply immersed, enmeshed kind of stagnancy into more superficial as it dissolves out of the body. So we're actually purging this old stuff out of the body, as well as bringing awareness to why we've been acting the way that we've been acting, why we've been responding or reacting to things. And when we no longer have that energy within us, we don't operate from that place. And the other aspect of things is I do hypno-energetic integration. So I blend hypnosis with energy healing. And when we get into those deeply embedded memories in the subconscious and we shift them, we change the baseline. You're no longer operating from that same operating system. You've gotten an upgrade to that. So you don't even react in those ways anymore. And you don't have to consciously will yourself into changing your behaviors. You just are different because your operating system has shifted. So when we go into the core places where these wounds and these belief systems reside, and we change it, we shift it, life just is different. So we don't have to consciously know all the things and all the traumas and work through all the stuff. We don't have to do that to ourselves because we anchor that stuff back in when we discuss it, we talk about it, we activate the pain again. And we create a larger component of that in our systems when we keep ruminating about something. So when you can go into these places, it's an easier access point to actually clear through that energy and that belief system. And you just become more of who you are before that trauma. You come in as your pure self and your authentic self and your essence because you're not compounded with all this trauma that's been kind of carried forward. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but I think I got on a little tangent.
Yeah. Well, didn't quite answer the question, but it was just very interesting. I'm just listening to what you were saying because I haven't heard of the term hypno integration. Is it hypno integration, right? Before. So
Hypno-energetic
that
integration. It's my own
yeah,
modality. Yeah.
yeah. It sounds really potent and really like that. I mean, I'm like, oh, sign me up for that. um How quick do you find that it helps your clients? Because it sounds like you are able to go in there straight away and just, you know, switch things
Yeah.
off. Yeah. So would like
Hmm.
if I came to you for something, are you like would it be like one session or would it be like a few? Like how does it work? Because I know like from just with coaching and or everything, you clear things, but then it kind of comes back. So how have you found that with your clients, whether, as things come up, um, do things come back up to the surface once you go in and switch it off?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, everything, as you know, is a layered approach. So, as you clear through one layer, there most likely will be other layers, but they will be smaller. And one thing about this work is when you get to the actual core, the origin of this place, and you shift there, that new healing, it's almost like if you're on a pathway and you decide to pivot and take a different path instead, when you go back to the origin point and you heal that, it's almost like you've taken a completely different pathway from that point forward. So anything that had compounded on top of that original wound, let's say you were on the playground and your best friend said, I hate you, I want to play with Susie instead. And you just got deeply wounded, felt really rejected, and you held that wound within you, so dramatic. But you held that wound within you as a rejection wound. And so you start walking this rejection wound pathway. And then everything that sort of reminds you of that wound all of a sudden also is magnetized into that. It's like, oh, there it is again. See, people reject me. And so you start believing this more and more and more. And that weight becomes heavier and heavier because things are compounding on top of it. So this is why it's sometimes really challenging to get people out of their defaults because there's so much compounding that's happened. But when you go back to the original wound, you basically domino forward healing on that whole pathway. And it's almost like the other stuff didn't happen because the original wound never existed. So we shift things there for more permanent healing. And what's fascinating, this study has been done where they said it takes 600 psychoanalysis sessions for a 38% improvement, where it takes 6 hypnotherapy sessions for a 93% improvement. And the reason for that is because we're bypassing the critical factor of the mind, and we're not willing ourselves to change. We're not insisting that we're going to go to the gym and eat healthy for the next 60 days and try to tries to fail, right? But when you can go in and change the operating system and be like, I am so worthy of having an amazing body, feeling great in my skin, making healthy choices for myself intuitively. When you go and change that operating system, you're making fast change that way because you're not willing yourself. You just are different. Your belief system, the core of your being, is different. And it's getting you back into who you are at your essence, not everything that you've learned since being in this crazy place. So it's been very, very beneficial for people.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I had a question for you, and then I totally forgot about it because I was so like intrigued with everything you were saying. Yeah, I was like, I need to ask her that, and then I'm like listening to you, but I think he's popped back in. So I know with hypnosis, do you ever find that there are people that resist, like that are hard to go under?
I have, yeah. And what I find is, in fact, it was really funny. I had a client who he was really, really chatty and talking about all kinds of different things. And we would start to get into the core of something. And then he would kind of pivot and talk about something different. I'm like, okay, was that the core? We're just keep trying to find the core. And it didn't dawn on me when I was in session until afterwards. We were debriefing. And I was like, oh my gosh, that it finally, like, it comes in to see that part of you that is really distracting you from your feelings all the time is really genius at pulling people away from feelings in any way that they possibly can. So it was this distractor part that kept him from feeling the truth. So we do have things that show up like that sometimes, but when you identify it, then you can manage it. And so next session, we go back in and it's like, let's talk to that part. Let's see how that part is trying to protect you, because that's all these parts are trying to do, is to keep us safe. But they operate from fear. So that rejection wound might come. You don't want to apply for that job because you might get rejected. So better just sit on your couch and binge watch Bridgerton, and all the things, all the things that we do because we're afraid. But that's those old parts within us that are keeping us small. And so when we talk to that part and be like, let's renegotiate your position here, because we don't need to keep this person from his fear anymore and from his feelings anymore. So let's renegotiate this and see how you can actually serve him now, because the old ways are not needed anymore. So we make new agreements with the parts within us that have been operating just to keep us safe, that are now just getting in the way.
Mm, that's interesting. And this popped up. Okay, so you were talking about how, previously we were like when you had coaching or counseling or therapy sessions, the trend was that you kind of go back in and relive, everything to excavate. And now it's more like, okay, let's just go in there subconsciously and just, flip the switch. But it also sounds like you still need to know the core. So how do you not, I don't know where I'm getting at, but like, how do you not feel like, do you know what I'm getting at? Like, because before you would have to go back in and feel all the emotions to find the core, but now you don't need
Mm-hmm.
to feel all the emotions to find the core. But if you know the core, won't those emotions also come up? I think that's my question.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's a really good question too, because excuse me, the emotions are a really important part of things. So this is, from the energetic perspective, I would say that the details of situations create more pain. when you're remembering this happened, that happened, this happened, then they did this and this happened to me, that the details of things create the pain. But the feeling is actually a beautiful cleanse, like a cathartic cleansing process. So when you feel the feelings and you tend to those feelings, because a lot of times, as kids, we were, you're not supposed to be heard or seen or whatever, all the things, basically stuff everything down. And so for many of us now, it is a matter of allowing the expression of feelings. And when you can let yourself feel those things, you do get into the core of that place where they're being held. So that is really, really relevant work with the feelings. But again, the details of things where people get into the stories, the backstory, all of that stuff. I feel like when you're first starting the healing journey, it's really relevant to connect the dots, to see, I'm feeling this way, I'm acting out this way because this happened to me. So a lot of times, and that's where my healing really took a deep dive, is when I finally, I was one of those, get back up, you got to keep going. You just brush yourself off, you keep going. And until something really tragic happened, I was like, ouch, that really took me down. And until I recognized how much I had been victimized, I couldn't go into the depth of that wound until I recognized it was there. So we really do need to see that wound and be able to feel safe enough to go in there. And I think many of us, the wounds are pretty deep. I mean, I don't know, parenting felt medieval when I was growing up. There was so much abuse and everything. And so you don't want to go back there and consciously work through those experiences, But when you can recognize that there was pain and you can start to tend to that little child within you that never got the love and attention that he or she wanted, and you heal there, it's like, oh, it's such a different perspective rather than having to, go through and pick through all the painful experiences.
So it sounds like that it's more around talking to, say, that particular part of you, like the child, and giving them what they need rather than going, hey, let's go and visit that traumatic event again and relive it and then go through all of it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thank you for that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when you can go back into that place, that little self, who never was understood or heard, and you heal there, that makes huge, huge strides forward.
Mm. Yeah. And I guess even like when you think about it as an adult, if you and your friend had a fight for whatever reason, and you're holding all the grudges, he said, she said, da 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 da. But if you then just kind of go and talk it out with your friend and you just move forward. So yeah, that to me also makes a lot. It's kind of the similar kind of thing, but you're going back in time. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So then I want to talk more about, like, I think we've kind of gone on this like beautiful like tangent, but also it all kind of comes back in together. But we wanted to talk about aligning with your highest timeline. How does someone know that they are aligning with the highest timeline? Like, how do you tell that you are there, like that you're going that way?
Yeah, I would say when you hear those stirrings within you, knowing that, following your kind of desires, I guess, to break it down in the simplest form. When you desire something, it's because you're meant to have it. And if you're not experiencing that reality, you're on a timeline that's not maybe aligning you with having that, at least right now. You might be working towards it. But if you want to accelerate that timeline, you can jump over to a different frequency, a different energy, a different reality, a different experience, so that you can have your desires. So basically, if you're in a timeline with a lot of struggle, let's say you want a relationship and you're on these dating apps and you're meeting all these people and they're just always the same rendition of the same person with a different face, right? Clearly there's something that you're on a timeline where this is the experience that's available for you here. And so if you don't like that, we need to change something. We need to pivot and go in towards something different. And a lot of people will try to change all sorts of external parts around them, thinking that that's going to make the difference. But in reality, doing self-work is the only way that you can really make permanent change. So at that point, I would say, if someone came to me with, wanting to find a better match in dating, I would go in and see, what is it within you that's attracting in these people that aren't really supportive of you or loving you or hearing you, or they're cheating on you. What part of you is calling in this replicated experience? Because there's something that says, I'm not worthy of having this type of relationship, or that doesn't exist for me. There's a belief system within you that's creating your current reality. So when we go in and we identify what that is, we can pivot. And when you heal, again, coming back to the playground situation with the little girl, when we heal that rejection wound, you're no longer operating from this belief system that you're going to be rejected, and you're only aligning with people dating that are going to reject you in some way. So when you go back and you heal that wound, you do shift the entire experience of your life, because your system is different. Your belief systems are different. Your operating system is different. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you some technical questions now, because okay. Yeah, you've
like,
been on my
wait a
show
minute.
before, so I just like kind of get all curious, and I'm like a child, just like, tell me
I
more.
love it.
Okay. So say 𝐿𝐴𝐶 goes, I want to be a billionaire. That's the nudge that I'm getting. Okay. One, is it the ego or is it really mine? But say that is my highest timeline, and I'm like in struggle town, and I'm like, how is this even gonna work? This does not make any sense. I feel this is my path, but it seems too far away. What are some things people can do to start timeline jumping?
So there is this theory, and I think it's more of a proven theory at this point, but when you practice being what you want to be, you become that, because your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between an imaginary experience or a physical one, a real in life, tangible one. So if you are looking at your bank account and you're like, I'm not a billionaire, I've got $3 in my checking account, and the body goes into this contraction, this fear response, and this panic. So what happens is you create that energy in your body. So they say, if you want to be something, be it now, where we think we're going to be happy when. But can you choose to be happy now? Can you choose to live like a billionaire now? So in other words, what do billionaires, when they wake up in the morning, what do they think about? What do they do? What do they eat for breakfast? Who do they talk to? What kind of conversations do they have? It's not like I have to go buy, a waterfront property that I can't afford. No, that's going to keep you more in lack if you're coming from survival mode. But how can you practice being that? And the more we can create that in our fields, the more we create that in our reality. What you are is what you create. So if you want to be a billionaire, but you believe it's not possible for you, your belief systems are going to be your creation, not what you consciously want. Does that make sense? So when you get into this practice of, waking up in the morning, having so much gratitude for, I have so much freedom to do anything I want to do. Let yourself feel that. When you have a bath at night, I just love this luxurious bathtub that I'm in, even if it's a little janky bathtub. When you're enjoying it like it's the best, claw-footed, amazing tub you've ever seen, enjoy things like you already have them and practice being that person. That's the fastest way to shift that timeline. But what we do is we practice being everything that we don't want. And then we keep getting what we don't want. And then we wonder why we're getting what we don't want. It's because that's the only thing there's space for. So when you wake up in the morning, and they say gratitude is a really high vibrational piece, but recently I heard something, it was mind blowing and made so much sense to me, but the highest frequency vibration is authenticity. So when you can align your thoughts and your emotions and what you do, that authentic alignment is so powerful. And what I mean by that is, let's say you've got this event that you have been invited to, and you've had a really long week and you're just exhausted and you just want to chill out and just hang out with your loved ones at night on the couch instead. And you go to the event anyways, you're creating a misalignment. You're doing something that goes against what you feel. So that's misaligning your energy, as opposed to saying, you know what, I love you guys. I hope you have a great time, but I'm just going to chill tonight. I'll catch you at the next one. You're honoring yourself. That's alignment. So the more you can do what you feel and what you think and create that synergy, the more you can become what you want to become more easily, because you're not stretching your energy and your intentions all over the place. You're focusing where it matters most. And when you can come back into your wholeness, you can create so much more easily from that place. So that can make a huge difference.
I love that. The alignment with, like, well, the authenticity part. And then as you were talking, I'm like, but what if, like, I have, say, for example, like, because I do live podcasts now, or even, before when it was pre-recorded, and he'll be like, oh, I'm really just not feeling it today. How would that be, like, if I cancel on my guest, was that be authenticity, or like, how, like, there's that, oh, am I not showing up, or am I not, being flaky kind of thing? So how would that work? Because I know there's that a fine line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, so if you're really feeling like you're tired today, but this feels like a priority to you, is there something else you could move off instead? So you are making compromises with yourself. You're still finding a way to honor that feeling, while still meeting your obligations, because, there's certain things we need to do here as humans, but how we approach it is going to be huge. So if we go in being like, oh, we hate this, we're tired, we don't want to do this today, but we have to, that frequency is also a misalignment. So if you can say, it's almost like talking to your inner child at this point. Say, I know you really want to go out and play today, or you want to go to the beach today. I totally get it. We got to clean a room first, and then we can go do that. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So you kind of compromise with yourself that way. This is important. I'm building my business. It's a really relevant piece. So I'm going to do this, but I can move that other thing off, and then still support your energy in that way. So it is really about honoring yourself and your feelings, as well as your obligations, but in a way that feels, I guess, a little bit less black and white and more cooperative within parts of yourself, and being able to meet your needs in a way that many times we're like, okay, we're going to do the podcast anyways. And then we've got 7 meetings after that we're all going to show up for. And then I've got this conference at night, and we just have to do all of it. It's like all or none. And then the next day you're sick and you're laid out and you're like having to cancel everything. That doesn't serve you either. So it's finding balance within each present moment, is probably the easiest way to shift things. What do I have right in front of me now? How do I feel about it? Can I approach this with, positivity, and not false positivity, but really feeling like, yeah, I can feel good about that. Awesome. Go ahead with it. So it's kind of checking in a lot to even see what you need, and then pivoting from that point.
I love that. That's such a great tip for everyone that's listening, or, if they're watching on YouTube, because, a lot of, I've heard the two schools. There's doesn't seem to be that compromise in between. It's either like, you just need to do all the things and show up. You just have to show up and do all the things. Or it's like, if you don't feel like it, then you should just cancel, because, the energy is wrong anyway. So I love that, what you shared now is like, well, let's prioritize. Let's see how this feels. And, like, you don't have to do it all. There are other things that, are not as important and can be put off. Yeah, so I love that approach that you just shared. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. That middle ground is a good place to be.
I would love to find out, with you, how you like as we're talking about planning days, kind of like, priorities and stuff, how do you go about, choosing, um, what you do each day, or, what are priorities? Because obviously some people might think, everything's priority, some, nothing's a priority. But yeah, I'm just intrigued to
Yeah.
see your process and how you plan your day. How, yeah, whether it's very structured or you're a more flowing person or you're in between.
Yeah, it's funny. I was literally just laughing with a friend of mine last night about this very same thing because we were talking about how we're going to do this thing for like 4 months and whatever. And by day 3, we're like, oh, we're kind of over it. We're bored. And it's like this, I'm a very dedicated and determined person. So if I commit to something for like a 30-day challenge, I'm doing it. You know what I mean? But then I guess if there's accountability, I'm like showing up. But if it's on my own, I give myself a lot more flexibility. It's like, how do I feel? So I have priorities, natural priorities for me, my kids, my business, and so those things take priority. As well as, of course, self-care. I'm huge on that, meditating every morning and every night. But my day is definitely more of a flow, and I feel into beyond my client sessions. I'm like, what do I feel like doing? And I have tasks that I am doing, and I'm always studying new things and always getting new certifications because I love to learn. So I prioritize different things depending on what I'm doing. But the key difference from being able to be in the flow is I used to sign up for many different things, and then I would feel overwhelmed, and then I wouldn't get a lot of things done because I just had too much. So I have really learned throughout the years, because I'm a more flow person, I can't have too many things that I'm engaging with at one time, because then I get overwhelmed. So I've chosen to pick 1 or 2 things that I'm engaging with. And then when I've got that downtime of what I want to do, I have a choice of 2 things versus 10 that leave me in stagnation and overwhelm. So I know that about myself because I don't really like structure. And so I just sort of refine my world to where I can still be really productive, but in a flow that feels best to me. And there might be some days where I'm like, I had a big day yesterday, I'm going to take more downtime today. And I do. And then the following day, I get back on and I really, go into it. So I really trust my own energy levels, what I feel like engaging with. And I found that when I do that, I am most productive because I'm listening to myself and where I'm at. Are there some times when I push myself? Absolutely. That's my personality. I'm kind of an overachiever. But then I quickly kind of rebound from that and be like, okay, we've pushed enough. Now let's go chill. Let's go do something different. And then I take extra time later to kind of recover from that. So it is kind of an ebb and flow, push pull sort of way. But I just have learned to kind of tune in and listen to see what my energy wants, what would feel good. And it's always productive, even if it's just sitting and watching a movie, that for me is productive because I'm actually relaxing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a hard one to learn for me because A-type personality, overachiever, just like you need to be productive doing stuff all the time. So, learning to
Mm-hmm.
actually just go, oh, I'm, not just binge watching, a show because my mind just needs to relax, but is actually productive. Whereas before I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like wasting my time, and all those mind chatter that would come with it. Yeah. So were you always
Mm-hmm.
someone that was kind of in that flow, or did were you more like a, checklist to-do list person before, or this has always been your operating style?
Yeah, I still love checklists and to-do lists just to keep things organized in my mind, because I feel so much, and so when I'm involved in several different things, I'm feeling the weight of all of that. So I love checklists because I can write it down and then I move it out of my system. It's there for when I want to engage with it. But I've always kind of been anti-structure. And now I've learned to embrace a little bit of that more because I feel like, again, the middle ground of that is a good place to be. So I have certain things that I like to do each day, like my meditations and downtime and things like that, to really connect with myself, because I know that I'm a better person. I'm a better healing facilitator. I'm better all the way around when I'm connecting with myself. So that structure has been built into my day, just the same way that I brush my teeth every morning and night. You know what I mean? It's like things that are just sort of habit now, I
Mm.
guess. So that allots me some structure while I still really enjoy that process.
Mm. Is there anything in your day that's a non-negotiable, as in like you must do it every single day?
Um, I don't feel that way too much about anything. I definitely I feel like connecting with myself is kind of that way, but it's not like you have to do this or else sort of way. It feels more like I get to do that. I'm
Yeah.
taking time to do that, and it feels really nice. So yeah, I don't feel like there's anything that I kind of force myself to do every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess connecting with yourself is just so second nature that is very organic. It's not like something that you have to check off. So yeah, cool. And this question
Yeah.
has popped
Yeah.
in a
And
few
I
times. Oh, sorry. You keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh,
It's all you.
sorry. I think there's a slight lag between us, so I'm like, oh no, I'm talking over her. Um, so you talked about this before because I said to you at the beginning, I'm like, oh, hypno energy integration. I haven't heard of this before, and you're like, oh, that's a modality that's your own modality. So now this question is like, ask her, how did she create the modality?
Yeah, it's funny because it just sort of was channeled to me in that way, because I've done energy healing forever. I mean, I got my first Reiki certification in 2001. So it's
Wow.
been, 20 plus years since I've been doing energy healing. And when I have been studying hypnosis, hypnotherapy, quantum hypnosis, it just seemed like such a natural marriage between the two of them. And it just came to me. And what's funny is there is a Hypno-Energetics in Australia. Everything awesome is in Australia. um, but for me, it's the integration part is really very powerful, because that's what I help people do is I help them integrate with their true selves. And I also help them integrate from their process. So when they're processing through their emotions, their past, all their stuck energy, we have to integrate into a new life. So a big part of my work is integration. I've taken people after they've experienced plant medicine journeys, they've come to me really fragmented in their fields, because processing after that can be challenging because so much happens. And so I've helped people integrate with the parts and the pieces that have been fractioned off, and to come back into that sense of wholeness. And so the integration part for me is really powerful. And then it's just the blend of those two modalities that I just hold so dear to my heart, both of them independently being extremely potent and powerful, but together it's like, whoa. that's that's pretty amazing, the stuff that we can do.
Mm. Now you piqued my other interest. You said you channeled it, so you know where this is going. I'm like, oh, she channeled it. Now, how?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in constant dialogue with the outer realms all the time. And I can shut it down, but I just don't like to. And that's why I really appreciate my solitude so much, because I am in dialogue. And so I never feel alone. I'm always learning more and receiving information and different things that come in, like clients that I'm working with. I kind of hold their energy in a container of healing and safety and security when we're working together, and even beyond. But sometimes within that space, I'll just get little intuitive hits about them. It's like, oh, that's what that is. And so I'll share with them at our next session, what came through. So it's just always receiving information. And when I'm exploring a new pathway, in fact, when I had my holistic center, it was channeled to me. It was to be called the collective. And this was back in 2012, before the word collective was a thing. And my friends were like, well, the collective what? The collective community, the collective what? And I was like, just the collective. And it was like a collective of healers and facilitators and coaches, and the collective of the community and the people coming. It's just like the collective. And then years later, everybody was using that word. And I was like, you guys were on it. They know. So I just trust the information that comes through, that it's what I'm supposed to be using for whatever reason, the frequency of the words or whatever it is. I've just kind of learned to trust it through the years.
Mm. Do you channel, do you get information from a specific being or, master, guru, sage, whatever? Or is it like it can just be any one? I don't even know if any one is the right term, but you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So when I first started channeling, I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't understand it. I didn't like seek it out or search it out just to try to do it. I was in a deep meditation and I was doing a very, very deep chakra clearing of myself. And when I got to my throat, sometimes when you meditate, your body starts to kind of move and sway and do its thing.
Yeah.
And my head just kind of found its way back. And as I was clearing my throat, just so much energy was coming out, but my head kind of got stuck back a little bit. And it freaked me out a bit because I was so deep in my meditation that I had kind of lost the ability to physically connect with myself. So I called on 𝐟𝐤𝐵𝐞 𝐿 to come and pull me from the depth of my meditation to bring me back into my body. And all of a sudden I felt this huge masculine presence on my right side. And I felt this hand do this and put my head on his shoulder. And I was like, okay, you've officially lost your mind. I sat there completely freaked out for I don't know how long and I was having a dialogue with myself like, well, you did call on him. Well, he's here though, but is this really real? I mean, the whole thing. So I sat there and I was like, okay, this is happening. And just appreciated his presence and this beautiful masculine, just protector energy that just came instantly because I asked. And then when I sat back up, I felt this feminine presence on my left, and she identified herself as Saint Bridget. And I didn't know who it was at the time, but we dialogued for probably 45 minutes. And I was asking all kinds of questions. I was considering leaving my marriage. So I was asking all these personal questions about what that looked like. And, and then at the end, I remember her saying to me, the reason why you've been so restless your entire life was because you've been searching for your connection back to us. And I was like, that makes so much sense because I never felt like I fit in this planet. I felt like there's so much cruelty and density here and unkindness, and that never resonated with me. And I didn't understand all the cruelty here. I don't operate from that place at all. And so my connection to them, it's like these beings of just love and light and guidance. And it's like, these are my people. Just feeling like I'm not alone here in this dark place. So it was really life-changing for me to be able to connect with the angelic realm and the ascended masters. And then I started just exploring every single ascended master I could find and meet and could identify them through their frequency and their energy. And then it just became like this culmination of beings. And then throughout the years, it just was this connection through to my higher self and God. So it's sort of streamlined through the years from this huge kind of collective of resources into just me, my intuitive self, and God. And everything in between that's of love and light, I suppose. So I don't identify it as something like a personality or a persona. It just is guidance, and something that feels truly resonant within myself.
That's beautiful. I was getting like the tingles as you were talking. Wow, that's such a cool story.
Thanks.
Thank
It was
you.
an interesting
Yeah.
experience for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, if I experienced that, I would have gone, I'll just go check myself at the mental health institute now. Yeah, but yeah, totally get you. Yeah, when you have those experiences, you're like, and then you just learn to just trust that they're real and you're you're
Yeah.
sane.
Yeah. So when people come to me, they're like, this is so weird. I don't know. And I was like, you literally bring it. I will never think anything you say to me is weird. I promise
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, it gets to that point, doesn't it? Yeah. I love it. I
It
love it
does.
so much. Um, I'm I'm just looking at the time, but this question kept popping up because you were talking about integration before. So you've got your hypnosis, you've got your
Mhm.
energy, and the integration. And for people who don't really know what integration is, uh, do you mind talking about what it actually is and why is really important? Because I know when you're doing the work, the inner work, and you go to you go to retreats and you have these amazing experiences, and you come back and you're not integrated, and then you become a mess, and all the work you did, it's gone. So, can you share with people what integration means and why it's really important that we integrate after we do, our energy work, our spiritual personal development work?
Yeah. So, from an energetic perspective, the way that I see this is, let's say, in taking back that example of the child on the playground. So, when she took on that rejection wound, it's almost like a part of her essence was carved out and pushed out of her. That part of her that believed she was lovable no matter what. That part all of a sudden was shelved, and this piece of rejection came in instead and took that space. Right. So this is how I see it energetically. And so when we're healing that rejection wound, we're actually removing and clearing through that place where rejection is stuck and inviting back in her true sense of self. So energetically, that integrates, but consciously, behaviorally, we might still be operating from that old system. So the integration into the new is an awareness of who you actually are beyond that wound. So when you're integrating, you're learning how to be that person once again, who's lovable no matter what, who's practicing being that within herself, within her own self-care, as well as her relationships with others. So it's literally taking everything that you've integrated within and now applying it to your reality so that you can continue to ripple that outward and actually create something different for yourself. So what happens is sometimes when people experience all these big things at a retreat or from plant medicine or something else, and they don't know how to be that different version of themselves. So they're sort of caught in this limbo place of, I sort of feel this way, but I sort of feel this way too. And so it's like we need to be able to pick which one we really want to align with. And so it's an awareness of how you've been getting in your way before, and so that you can start to make those specific changes to integrate that into your actual reality. I know it was kind of a long-winded thing. Do you have follow-up questions on that, or did that answer
Yeah,
that?
you definitely did answer that really well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. Yeah, it was
Good.
just a
Yeah, you're welcome.
question, yeah, that kept coming back because I think it's really important. It's an important one, I think, for people to understand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is for sure. And I think, for people to be able to put into practice everything is huge. And then life is just practice. That's all it is. Like we put so much stress on ourselves to know what to do things in the right way, to do things perfect. And none of that really matters. It's just practice. If you don't know how to meditate, practice it. If you don't know how to be a billionaire, practice it. If you don't know how to be this next version of yourself yet, practice it. It's just practice. And when you can alleviate all of the pressure around it, it makes it a lot easier.
mm. Yeah. I love, at the beginning how you said that. I'm in the trenches just like everyone else is, because I think a lot of times there's this
Mhm.
misconception that if you're teaching all this stuff or helping people, to become, the more authentic version of themselves, that you've got yourself all sorted. But, we're, like you say, we're living on Earth. It's a life school that never ends.
For
So,
sure.
so
For
whilst
sure.
whilst we would love to be enlightened beings that have our shit sorted, that is not the case.
For sure. Well, I think too, that's a question like, is this ever going to end? And there are, I think, those of us that have really come here to make big changes. the answer is probably no, because we wanted this. We signed up for this. We signed up to walk through all these lessons, to learn, to continue to evolve. It's literally like it's a big job. And our job, I've always known I've got a big job here, but it's not what I thought it was. It's not to change the world and heal humanity, which is what I originally thought, which is insane when I say it out loud. But it's to heal all the stuff that's within me, all the stuff. So it's just unpacking all of that. And I think that, it is a big job for all of us. And if we're avoiding or ignoring that work, we're really doing a disservice to the greater good of ourselves and for the collective consciousness. So I'm right there in it with you, girl. Right there. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's good. You've got the
More
tools
growth.
to help yourself, a lot quicker and help
Yeah.
others. So, that's very important.
Yeah. And as time is speeding up now too, it's crazy. I'm sure you've felt that too. Time is condensing. And so we're able to move through things really quickly. But at the same time, whereas an experience used to take 3 months where we get like little bursts of it, now it's like, it's intense, it's here, it's hard and fast, you're going to get through it. So it's definitely intensified as well. So what you and I spoke about briefly before we came on is that aspect of surrender. It's like when you can't control everything and you're not meant to, and you finally learn that you're not supposed to control everything, and you can just be in the flow and in the surrender of it. It's a lot more graceful experience. For
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, we were just saying that it's the lesson of a lifetime, surrendering.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Humans, we just love to get in our own way and control everything. The control, if we can control it.
Right. Yeah.
But
We can be
saying
safe
that,
if we can control it. And it's like,
yeah,
yeah.
saying that, I
Sorry, go
think,
ahead.
I think life would be a lot easier if we can control it, but, it's not that way. Um, yeah. So, Jean, I'm looking at the time. And before we wrap
Mhm.
up, I just wanted to ask you one last question, and that is, what would you love our audience to take home with them today after listening to our conversation? It can be something, from our conversation, or there's something else that, you feel you haven't had the chance to express yet. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think just remember that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. And from that place, you can do anything you want to. It's when we think that we should be somewhere different, or we should be doing something different, or all the shoulds. They always say, don't should all over yourself, right? You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And what are you going to do with it now? Do that thing and just let yourself be in that place, in that present, and see what wants to come next.
Thank you for that piece of wisdom. I've received it, and I'm sure our audience who's listening, catching the replay, will receive that as well. Thank you so much, Jean. And
Yeah.
Jean, if people want to find out more about you, or want to work with you, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, my website at 𝐷eanAtman.com.
Perfect. Any socials that you usually hang on around at?
I'm on Facebook a little bit, but I'm not really on social media too much. I'll share some things there, but if you want to get on my newsletter for upcoming events, retreats, things like that, those will all you can find on my website, or get on my email list that you can sign up from there as well. Yeah, I've got some exciting things planned for next year for some more retreats. So definitely, if you like to retreat and you like to do that with me, go ahead and hop on my email list.
Perfect. I love that you're not on socials much. That's, something refreshing.
Yeah.
Let's not go
Yeah,
there. We can talk about it
yeah.
after.
Right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. That's probably a good idea.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah.
much for spending time with me today. It's been,
Yeah.
I've really thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And yeah, thank you once again for coming back on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's always so good to connect with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jean. Bye.